Hello there. Hi, I'm Gloria Macarenko. And you know, here on the coast, we are blessed with fresh seafood and a rich culture that feeds our soul. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, getting to the heart of what's so special about the Vancouver Special. And sampling from the local restaurant voted best for seafood and the best fish and chips. But first, drawing choral inspiration from water and local Indigenous communities. Now, there's a clip from a video of the Elektra Women's Choir, and it's called Teachings of the Water. It was done in collaboration with local First Nations, and this whole thing is going to be posted on YouTube Thursday, June 9th. Well, with us today is Pat Carrabré. Pat wrote this musical score. He's a Métis composer and director at the UBC School of Music. Pat, thank you so much for coming in.
Really my pleasure. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about this project. I mean, just from the little we've seen there, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I haven't seen all of the video yet myself, so I'm waiting with bated breath to see it all. It really looks to be quite spectacular. It's a project that has been quite a while in the making. You know, when you're working with Indigenous communities, First Nations, local communities in particular, you need to take the time to get to know people and to make friendships and to follow the protocols to make sure that you're doing things properly. And so that takes a lot more time. I was brought on board very early in the project. Morna Edmondson called me, and Jeanette Gallant had come up with some concepts about Indigenous water protocols. And so they asked me as a Métis composer to write the music. First, I was a little bit unsure because water protocols tend to be more on the women's side of things. But I thought, okay, as a Métis person, I can fill that traditional role of being a mediary between Western culture and Indigenous culture. So we connected to a number of local knowledge keepers. In the end, we connected most deeply with folks from Squamish First Nation. And then we got going from there. We shared our ideas, we went back and forth, we tried things out with the choir, and it's been a really wonderful process. Okay, well, I mean, where do you even start to try things out with the choir, though? I mean, are you coming up with this inspiration in the middle of the night saying, I'm just gonna go here? I mean, seriously, you're making Frenches, but you're making music too. Yeah, but it takes time because, and that's what I loved about this kind of project, is that you have the time and the relationship with the musicians. So I would, first of all, we would have a meeting with Becky Duncan, who was our Squamish language holder. And we said, okay, here's some of the concepts that we've been working with around water, whether that's birth or community or how we ripple out, with our person is like a little ripple that then connects to all these other people in the community. And she would say, okay, in Squamish, it's this kind of idea. So they had this a protocol called shokum, where you immerse yourself in cold water, or Wepeon, which is like a cedar brushing ceremony. So she'd gifted us those words, and then I would go away and I would try in general terms about how do I feel about this idea about water, whether it's birth or introducing people or water that's in different forms, like rain or in the ground, or how that works. And I tried to do it in a more abstract way so that as we learned more from Becky, we could adapt to these protocols from here. Well, you're a creative person already, but how has this experience affected you, changed you? It's been really impactful for me as an uninvited guest on this territory. I've only been in BC for 3 years. I come from Red River in Manitoba. So for me to make the connections to people like Becky and Mary Jane Joe, who was also working on the project, and a number of other people, it really gives me a feeling that I'm welcome and that I'm kind of getting grounded in the difference that is this space where the very different protocols than I know from the prairie. So it's been really wonderful, and with Elektra, to meet all these great musicians who are so excited and open to the idea of exploring these different ways of knowing and being.
No, I love that. I love the way you've described that. And you talk a little bit about the ripple effect. You know, the ripple effect as you're exploring water, nature, that type of thing. What kind of ripple effect do you hope an experience like this and a project like this will have in the future?
Yeah, and that's a really key part for why I wanted to participate, because when I talked to Morna and Jeanette, the idea is that I've written the notes, but if this piece is done in Toronto, the invitation is for the Toronto choir to connect to the First Nations in their community, to understand their water protocols, to adapt the piece. So I think the ripple is really in giving an invitation to engage between choirs and the traditional owners and caretakers of the land where they are.
Pat, thank you so much for coming in and sharing some beautiful music with us.
Real pleasure. Thank you so much.
This is our Vancouver.
All right, it's time now for one of our favorite features. This is where we get to showcase a number of the photographs sent in by you, our audience. Okay, let's start here. This one from Charmaine McKean. She captured this rare sight, a white grizzly bear on the side of the road north of Golden. Just wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And a bald eagle was flying right by Richard Topping in Richmond when he snapped this photograph. That is impressive. And finally, Chris Sawatsky was taking photographs of insects in his backyard one afternoon when he snagged this shot. Isn't that gorgeous with a color in the background? And do keep them coming. A great time to get out and about with your cameras. Send your favorite photographs to us at bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's bcphotos@cbc.ca. All right, coming up, it turns out a warmer ocean is a louder ocean. Johanna Wagstaffe will be here to tell us what that means for the survival of marine life.
As we continue to learn, a warming ocean has widespread impacts. Turns out it's also changing the way sound waves travel. In warmer water, sound waves propagate faster and last longer before dying away. So using public data, a team from the University of Newfoundland and Labrador calculated the effects of temperature, depth, and salinity to model the soundscape of the future in our oceans. They found that climate change is speeding sound transmission, with 2 acoustic hotspots predicted, one east of Greenland and the other off the coast of Newfoundland. In these locations, the average speed of sound is likely to increase by more than 1.5%, with a business-as-usual greenhouse gas emission scenario through to the end of the century. Now, that might not sound like much, but these changes to ocean soundscapes could impact essential activities of marine life, like survival. Most of the changes are happening at 50-meter depths, where sound speed ranges from 1,400 meters per second to 1,500 meters per second. A 1.5% jump translates to an increase of roughly 25 meters per second. This is the first global scale estimate of ocean sound speed linked to future climate. The ocean soundscape is a huge range of vibrations produced by living organisms, natural phenomena like waves, cracking ice, and earthquakes, and also increasing noise from ships and resource extraction. Many marine animals use sound to communicate and navigate their underwater world. Changing the sound speed can impact their ability to feed, fight, find mates, avoid predators, migrate. For example, the North Atlantic right whale, a critically endangered species, well, their typical up call is likely to propagate farther in a warmer future ocean, according to this study. What exactly would that mean for the right whale? Cross signals, confusion, more stress for nearby animals? Future work will combine the global soundscape with other maps of anthropogenic impacts to try and figure out what this means for marine life stressors. So stay tuned. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me a tweet and I'll try to get it answered.
I'm Michelle, and this is Our Vancouver.
Johanna, thank you very much. You are watching Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, for 25 years, the Georgia Strait has asked its readers to pick the best local places to eat for its Golden Plates issue. So our next guest comes from the place that was picked the best for seafood and for fish and chips in particular. Matt Blais is the executive chef at the Vancouver Fish Company restaurant and bar. Matt, hello there and welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
Well, it's great to have you, and thank you for bringing in this gorgeous seafood as well. First off, how does it feel to get this kind of recognition?
It's awesome. I actually had no idea that we're going to be number one, and I'm super happy and stoked with everybody voting for us.
I think it is great. Well, let's talk about entering Granville Island. You're under the bridge. You're just getting down to the market area. But before you get there, there's the fish company.
Just on the left.
Talk about the location.
Yeah, the location's just at the entrance of Granville Island, just on the left side. You cannot miss it. It has a nice, beautiful walkway patio, all that. Yeah.
Patio's a big draw, especially this time of year. Things getting busier down on Granville Island now?
Yeah, for sure. And then we just won Best Patio as well in tl'a, which is fantastic.
It's good. Let's talk about what goes into the food, and let's talk fish and chips in particular.
Okay.
What's your approach to the perfect fish and chips plate? We got it right here.
For fish and chips, the best three things is have clean oil, good product, and the batter. Right?
Okay, clean oil. What kind of oil do you fry?
So right now we use canola oil, but we make sure we rinse that through or cycle it through, filter it, and make sure it's nice and clean, fresh every day. With the batter, there's a Granville Island honey lager in there and a little bit of vodka.
Okay.
And the vodka helps, is more volatile than water, which will cause a crispier and more lighter batter at the end of it.
Oh, I see. Okay, let's talk. What type of fish do you
halibut,
makes the best?
So our fish we use is halibut.
Okay, and why is that? Cod, I would think, is a little juicier. I mean, halibut, you got to just get the right moment. Why do you choose halibut?
Halibut, we have a sole supplier for our fishermen, which has a fantastic, beautiful product, which, I mean, honestly gave us number one for best seafood or best fish and chips.
There
so
you go.
That's our secret.
I love halibut too. I just find if I'm making my own fish, the cod is a little more forgiving. So
absolutely.
Now, what about what goes into the batter? All batters are not created equal either.
So there's flour, baking soda, baking powder, cornstarch, and salt, but just the ratios we'll keep for ourselves.
Aha! That's the key, the ratio. Okay, so I'm just going to have a little bite of this now. I don't have so. This is kind of fun. I want to kind of finger food. You think?
Absolutely.
Kind of
just tear away.
Now, what would you recommend in terms of it? You've got a little bit of slaw here, lemon, tartar. What's your favorite way?
A little bit of lemon and then tartar sauce for sure.
Okay, I'm going to squeeze that on. Yeah, I'm going to dip in the tartar. I won't double dip.
Oh, you do
this.
everything.
All right. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, let's just check that gorgeous piece of halibut right here. I grew up in Prince Rupert, which used to be the halibut capital of the world.
No way.
Back in the day, and they were giant, gorgeous fish, so I love this. Let's try this. That is beautiful. That is just beautiful. Can I just keep eating?
Oh, yeah.
You just keep talking?
Please.
I want to hear about what else you brought in here, because it's not just about fish and chips, right?
No, it's just a little bit of everything. And so we got our seafood platter here, which kind of showcases most of our seafood that we have in-house. So right now we have spot prawns that are local in season, only for one more week.
Right.
Hokkaido scallops over here. We have our sustainably raised Arctic char from the Yukon.
Oh, that's char. I thought that was a rock or something. That's actual Arctic char.
That's actual Arctic char, yeah. Nice crispy skin.
Beautiful.
Snow crabs from Nova Scotia. And our lobster is actually from Nova Scotia as well. We have a lobsterman, a fourth generation Fabian, which is fantastic to have. And we've been partnered with him for the last year or so.
I see. And what about the mussels?
And probably our most popular starter is our mussels. So typically we use Salt Spring mussels, but as for right now, it is in spawning season between April and June. Okay. So right now we get our mussels sourced from PEI.
I love it. So lots of fresh seafood.
Absolutely.
What about what to drink? I know you brought in some bottles here. What would you suggest best drink?
So I personally like a Chardonnay. So with the seafood, within everything here, actually, this will probably be the best for my thing.
Okay, but a little Granville Island flavor here as well?
Oh, absolutely. So a nice little beer from Granville Island, which is the brewery is right across from our restaurant, which is...
It goes into the batter, and you can also have a little compliment as you drink it.
Absolutely.
I'm going to continue to eat the fish and chips. I want to congratulate you on your recognition. Keep it coming, and see you on the patio this summer, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
So good.
Forward to the edge, hands above our heads. Yeah, I came to collide. You grip in case you just wanna fall back, babe.
If you would like to go and see some live music, Toronto singer-songwriter Charlotte Day Wilson kicks off the Canadian leg of her Alpha Tour at the Commodore Ballroom. That's Thursday, June 9th.
I ain't never done time, but I might just kill my boss. And I'm sick of my ex calling me up and telling me off. Looks like things are finally looking up. Half full cup, this is what we waited for. Put the key in the ignition, get back to what you're missing. No sitting inside no more.
Then, next night, Ontario country duo the Reklaws. They play the Commodore with country singer-songwriter Nate Holler from Toronto. That's Friday, June 10th.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music here with an awesome singer, originally from Lavaltrie, Quebec, who has been doing really well on the CBC Music Top 20 thanks to her bold, brassy, and soulful style. Check out Leonie Gray.
Control, 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 control. You cannot control. But don't blame yourself for what you can't prevail. Every trip and every fall, you live through it all. So get your brothers, the whole crew. Let's get through this one step at a time. Get your power back. Get your power back, one step at a time. Feelings intertwined, get your power back.
That looks like fun, and what a great chorus. Almost like a jazzy, francophone Amy Winehouse. That's Leonie Gray from Quebec with her awesome song, Power. Leonie comes from a musical family, and after she received thunderous applause from an onstage performance at age 7, she knew that music would be her life. At age 18, she moved to Montreal and made a name for herself. 3 of the artists she claims have had the most impact on her are Etta James, Corinne Bailey Rae, and Feist. See if you can hear any of those influences in this one.
Your embrace is a lot less forced. That dreams me from all that I've got. And every time you raise your voice, it was the part that dissociated for so long. Reconnecting to full time job. What's your girl gotta do? Always losing myself for you.
Super cool tune there from Leonie Gray of Montreal. That was Banana Split. Now clearly, Leonie Gray loves tapping into classic soul, R&B, pop and jazz, opting for vintage, spontaneous production styles over anything slick and synthetic. And man, does it ever work. Check out this brand new song that powered up the CBC Music Top 20.
I wonder what was the point. You gave me so much of your time, I didn't mean to disappoint you. Could you at least verbalize what did I do that was so wrong? 'Cause I put on the 10,000 hours, did the shows and the sleepless nights, head in head first, thinking I will make you proud, but you don't call when I step up. Are you jealous? You don't care.
kidding me? That was great. Love that deep brass in that tune. Move over, Shirley Bassey. That's Leonie Gray from Montreal with her latest single, Slitted Tongue, which has hit the top 5 on the CBC Music Top 20. And Slitted Tongue by Leonie Gray is the song that you need to add to your throwback R&B pop soul playlist for this week. She's an amazing artist. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. I'll check in with you again soon.
And coming up, could the Vancouver Special help address our current housing crisis? tl'a will be here to address that question. Hello and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, tl'a explores the issues in our neighborhoods that affect our daily lives. And this week, he looks to the past for a possible solution to our current housing crisis, specifically a house built 10,000 times from the 60s to the 80s. Yes, he is talking about the Vancouver Special.
This one house, it's called the Vancouver Special, and once you notice one of them, you can't stop seeing them. There's one, there's another one, there's a group of them, a red one, a green one, a blue one. So how does a city end up with so many copies of one specific house? Well, I think the answer might offer some lessons for Canada's housing crisis. Our story begins in the 1960s. The city of Vancouver was experiencing a boom in immigration and housing in the city was running out. People needed homes and fast. Enter Larry Cudney, a local draftsman and a guy who apparently hated taking photos because I can't find one of him literally anywhere. He created a design for a house that would eventually become known as the Vancouver Special. It was simple and cheap to build. Its key feature, a low-pitched roof, meant you used fewer materials compared to a steeper roof. But the Vancouver Special wasn't just cheap, it also exploited a loophole, and that was because of its first floor. At the time, if you wanted to construct a house, there were rules that limited the size of your building by limiting how much square footage you could build. But the loophole? Back then, your basement was not included in that square footage calculation, and the definition of basement was a bit ambiguous. The first floor of the Vancouver Special was 18 inches below the ground, and for the city's lawmakers, that was enough to call it a basement. So the entire first floor of this house was technically off the books. This was a huge advantage. You could, of course, build a much bigger house, but also this so-called basement often ended up being used as a whole new unit of housing. You could have 2 separate families living under one roof. Now at the time, this was technically illegal. The city's rules stipulated that a house could only have one family, no more. But with this basement, the Vancouver Special helped people circumvent these rules. On paper, this was a 1-unit house, even though it was often a 2-unit house in practice. A 1-unit house on the streets and a 2-unit house in the sheets. Okay. This made the Vancouver Special perfect for many aspiring homeowners. For immigrants with relatives, they could house their extended family on the first floor. For working-class residents, they could rent out that floor and use that income to pay their mortgage. For these groups, the Vancouver Special became very popular. And that leads to the final reason for why we built so many of these houses: economies of scale. As more and more Vancouver Specials were built, it became just way easier to build them. The materials became standard in the construction industry, and city staff began to recognize the design and improve it for construction more quickly. In fact, it's been reported that you could get the plans for a Vancouver Special from Larry for $65 and have it approved and built in about 3 weeks. In the middle of a housing shortage, the Vancouver Special provided affordable housing for the people who really needed it. It provided the most house for your buck with an extra unit of housing, and it was really, really easy to build. And boy did we build them. Around 10,000 Vancouver Specials were constructed between 1965 to 1985. And while the Vancouver Special is an exceptional example, it certainly isn't alone. Most places have a specific house design that can be found all over the city. These repetitive designs exist for a simple reason. The easiest way to build a lot of housing really fast is to build the same house over and over and over again. To me, this story feels relevant right now. Many cities today find themselves with a shortage of housing, and part of the reason why is because building new housing is very difficult. Like the past, there are rules that limit how much you can build on a piece of property, often called zoning bylaws. And in many cities, most neighborhoods only allow for houses to be built in them. These are known as single-family neighborhoods, and they usually make up the majority of land in North American cities. Now, you can actually apply to build something larger than a house in a single-family neighborhood through a process called rezoning. But that's where things get a lot more complicated. Rezoning typically requires multiple applications, reports, consulting firm, council meetings, public hearings, and expertise of planning law, tons of money, and oh yeah, about 2 years. But even with all that effort, there is still no guarantee that you will even be successful. Your application could be denied. Rezoning is a slow, complicated, and risky process. Now, these rules and processes exist for a simple reason. Very few people in single-family neighborhoods want a high-rise or something more disruptive built next to their home. But the problem is that these rules end up stifling any changes to these areas. For example, the application process for this co-housing development in East Vancouver took 2 years, not the construction, the application process. When building new housing is this difficult, the usual result is that no new housing gets built at all. So that gets me thinking, what if we had a new Vancouver special? A building that's cheap to build, houses more people, and is quickly approved for construction in all these single-family neighborhoods. Well, there's actually something like that happening already. In 2018, the city of Kelowna held a competition for designs that could fit multiple units of housing on properties within single-family neighborhoods. The winning designs for a quadplex were given a fast-tracked approval process. Normally, this kind of building would take over a year to approve in these neighborhoods, but with these designs, you could start building in 2 to 3 weeks. In the past 2 years, over 200 of these quadplexes have been built, creating over 800 new units of housing. I think Kelowna's story is pretty incredible, and one that will likely result in a Kelowna special of sorts. But there is another side to this story that complicates things. At the height of its popularity, the Vancouver Special was perhaps the most hated piece of architecture in the city. Many complained that they were bland, ugly, devoid of architecture, and way too big. But more than anything, many felt that there were simply too many of them. And at the end of the day, the critics got their way. In the 1980s, the city officially made it illegal to build any more Vancouver Specials. Right now, the Kelowna Special is meeting the same fate. As of 2021, these quadplex designs are no longer being approved for construction, a decision that came after concerns that too many of them were being built. This sort of strikes at a tension that I think exists at the heart of the housing crisis. On one hand, most of us do want more housing, but on the other hand, we tend to want it done in a way that doesn't change our communities too drastically. We want new housing to be affordable, but not look too tacky or repetitive. So it's really no surprise to me that the Vancouver Special and other designs like it have been controversial. But there is an interesting twist to this story. In the years following the cancellation of Vancouver Specials, a wave of public sympathy grew around these houses. They were recognized for their role in allowing immigrants and working-class people to build their own housing, despite the criticisms of architecture snobs and social elites. Today, this house is viewed as a valuable part of the city's history. In fact, it has a bit of a cult following. You can find it on t-shirts, posters, cross-stitch art, craft beers, or even consume it in gingerbread form. I think there's an important lesson here. Maybe we don't need to be so concerned about the look of new housing because, frankly, looks are just a small part of why we value things. The Vancouver Special didn't care about being the most beautiful house, it just cared about being the most useful and affordable house for the people building them. And instead of the world ending, we grew to love these houses, for reasons I'm not sure we'll fully understand. But what I do know for sure is that right now, many cities do need more housing, and they need it fast. So I can't help but wonder, maybe it's time for a new special.
Coming up, how an engineer from India came to build a business in Canada teaching people how to drive. Hi, and welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Macarenko. Now, Jojo Korean was an engineer in India, and then he founded a driving school in Metro Vancouver. He is the next subject in our series that highlights Asian Canadians for Asian Heritage Month. Here's Michelle Elliott with that story.
A lot of people are struggling with the driving license. Nobody's giving the proper training for them.
Well, how do you feel being a driving instructor?
I'm happy. Means I am feeling somebody passing the first time, they're crying. I am sharing the happiest moment in their life.
So, Jojo, here we are. We're about to go on a fake lesson.
Yeah.
I do have my license.
Yeah, I know.
I've had it for a long time.
Yeah.
And you have a brake.
Yeah, I have brake and gas.
Okay. I'm stalling. I don't know if you can tell. Okay. Here we go.
Yeah, let it take it reverse.
Coming to a new country is one thing. Learning how to move around and drive in a new place is another. And driving instructor Jojo Korean is trying to bridge that gap.
On coming intersection, turn left. Next intersection, turn right. See?
How'd I do?
Not too bad, okay?
Not too bad. Okay. I will take it.
Jojo took a leap of faith and started Golden Star Driving School after he, like many others learning to drive in a new country, found passing tests here in Canada more difficult.
I was driving more than 15 years in India. I was attempting 4 times here.
You tried 4 times.
Nobody teaching the proper way, the ICBC criteria. So a lot of people are struggling for the driving lesson, driving lesson and good instructor.
After moving to Canada from India with his wife and 2 young children, Jojo and his family made their first home in this 2-bedroom ground floor suite. Now, it's where he runs his business.
Right through here?
Yeah.
This is the office. And so what was this before?
It's my bedroom.
Yeah.
This is my bedroom. That was my living room. Means all struggling, all happiness. 7 years before I came here means I don't have anything, Started from scratches from here, I worked all over every day.
Back in India, Jojo was an engineer, but like many others, he struggled to get certified in Canada. After a few years, Jojo's family moved to this new and more spacious home. It was a sign they were getting settled, but the start wasn't easy.
When I arrived, I can tell you I came April 11th, 1988. Do you remember the date when you arrived?
2014, December 16.
So you come out of the airport and you see snow.
That time was snowing, I know. When I landed at the airport, first time in life I was seeing the snowing. We feel like that, something, dream, Everything is new culture, new systems, everything is new for me.
It was a stark shift from his career back in India. But Jojo had to make do, working a variety of jobs in his initial years in Canada. His first was in a commercial laundry facility, washing clothes in big industrial machines.
And what was that job like for you?
So hard, you can't imagine. Means when I reach the home, all body pain, I take Advil. Very hard for me. Means I don't have any habit for the hard working. I'm sure. When I started here, I was crying. In my whole life, I never did the hard work. I was in a good position in India. When I came here, starting very difficult for me.
It's been 7 years now since Jojo started his business, and he's helped as many as 2,000 people from all different communities in Vancouver gain the freedom to drive.
I mean, you've built a business.
Yeah.
So how does it feel then to think about, I used to haul laundry at this facility, and how does it feel to look back at that and think of where you are now?
Yeah, I'm thinking like that. I'm not top or something like that. It means I'm happy with whatever I am. I'm happy.
Hi there. Welcome to Tacofino and Robson and Howe. And this is Our Vancouver.
For Indigenous Canadian producer Kelvin Redverse, being invited to walk the red carpet at the Cannes Film Festival was supposed to be a treat. But his decision to wear traditional moccasins with his suit, it prompted security to block him, then ask him to leave. Well, I had a chance to speak with him about his experience on our afternoon radio show on the coast.
I'm originally from Northwest Territories. Growing up, I spent time in the land. I feel connected to my tl'a culture. And I have this beautiful pair of moccasins that my sister made that I love to wear, for special occasions, basically. And my understanding is that can provide space for, I guess, what's called formal wear with a national identity. I'm not sure what the exact wording is, but generally you're supposed to wear a tuxedo and, an evening dress for women. But say a Scottish person wears a kilt. There's an understanding that within Scotland that's formal wear, basically, or if someone showed up with an Indian sari. And so knowing that, I was like, okay, well, for me, these moccasins are ceremonial, that they're formal, basically. So I'm going to wear a great tux. I'm going to look super good, but I'm going to insert just a little bit of indigeneity. I'm going to wear these moccasins that mean so much to me. And I was excited about it. I was telling people about it the day of. I dressed up in it and took photos with my little cohort, being like, oh my God, this is going to be so good.
Okay. Were you the only one wearing moccasins?
Yeah, well, it's really tricky to get tickets to Cannes, and so none of the others from my cohort had tickets for that event. So none of the others who maybe could have worn them did.
Okay, so you're feeling proud. You're
Very
dressed
proud.
up. You've got your tux on. You've got the moccasins your sister made. You start down the carpet. What happens?
Well, so basically, to get to the carpet, there's a series of checkpoints, basically, and so I had gotten through one because I'd had the moccasins in a bag. But as I put them on to get to the second, that's where I was kind of flagged by, at first, some kind of befuddled, security folks who were like, "Oh, sorry, no, like you can't do that." And I was like, "No, like this is formal for me. I'm tl'a." And they were like, "Okay, well, let me talk to somebody." And it kind of went up the chain a little bit of folks not knowing what to do. And then finally, I kind of got escorted back to the entrance, like the main checkpoints, where some of my other cohort met. And so they started taking some photos, and one of them spoke French, was trying to explain, like, no, like this is traditional, like this is formal, like similar to a kilt or a sari. And eventually there was this one security guy who came up and just, I guess he hit his limit and rather aggressively simply put his foot down to leave now, leave. There was a Variety article that just came out today, and like what it says is that I felt like a criminal, and that's a fair assessment. I really was quite shocked at this like aggressive treatment for what was such a thing of excitement for me that I was really looking forward to. So much so that even for a couple of days, like I kind of had to process it all. You know those things happen where it's just like, I don't know how I feel about this, and it's almost like too big to think about. So it really hurt. Basically, I'd had a pair of blue or brown suede shoes in my backpack, and so my cohort had some of my stuff. They gave it to me. But they were all really upset, and I ended up going to the carpets. I walked without the moccasins, but immediately the folks from the Indigenous Screen Office and from Telefilm went to the brass at Cannes and said, this happened and it shouldn't have happened. And, to give credit, the higher up folks at Cannes immediately had a meeting. And so the next day I met with the Secretary General of the entire festival and the head of the red carpets in person, face to face with Carrie from the Indigenous Screen Office. And Carrie was explaining why this is important and why it's traditional and why it's, different than, just a pair of slippers that someone's grandma might make. Because that's what they want to make sure that there's a certain level of, formality to it. And I guess they just hadn't had exposure to something like this pair of beaded moccasins with moose hide. They apologized and they said, okay, tonight, here's a ticket to the red carpets. You can wear those moccasins. And so, actually, one of my colleagues at the time, Ryan Cooper, he also had a ticket. So both him and I strolled up with our moccasins. And at the first security checkpoint, it was the same thing. They were like, nope. And then the next woman saw us and was like, let them through. And I was like, yes. It's really excited.
How did it feel to be sitting there watching all of this unfold with your moccasins on?
It was exciting. I think the biggest thing I hope is that no one else has to go through that. And so one of the things in the meeting is that the Indigenous Screen Office is committed to work with Cannes to try to help them to understand some of the nuance of what traditional formal wear means, so that they have a better understanding that in the same way a kilt is okay, that a pair of moccasins should be. and it's just they just don't have a lot of exposure to it because there's not a lot of folks like us who have, graced the red carpet yet. But all of us, as a part of that cohort, are, we believe, so close to having, our films premiere and just making a presence, essentially, at festivals like this. Because we all got great projects going on, and there's a lot of, great talent coming up.
Well, the Canucks may have missed the playoffs again this year, but the team has made the Stanley Cup Finals 3 times. The first time was in 1982. So let's dip into our archives with Tom Alderman, who brought us that report.
They don't deserve it. They shouldn't have it. They got no business being up there. But somehow the Vancouver Canucks are in the Stanley Cup Finals. Now the folks in Vancouver can lord it over the rest of us for something other than their beloved climate and their mountains. They got a team that can win playoff games.
So that gives the citizens something to do that they've never done before. They can gather at their local pubs and, as they did last night, watch their heroes perform in the Stanley Cup Finals, and then indulge in the usual BC braggadocio.
We got the better climate, we got our better teams. We should deserve it.
Come back here, the town will go wild. They'll go wild. They can't believe this city right now. And we deserve it. It's time, and it's ours.
Vancouver! Impossible, people. They've gone Canuck crazy. There's a record extolling the team's virtues.
King Richard will help us win the cup.
Enough, please. The usual breast-beating signs all over town, and this year's absurd team symbol, the white towel. Behold, 1,000 people waiting up to 2 days in line for tickets to the first Stanley Cup game ever held in Vancouver. They want to be in on history, BC style.
I'm a Canucks fan. I'm a reborn Canucks fan, but I'm a Canucks fan.
This just doesn't happen very often, Canucks making it to a finals, They worked hard, they deserve it, so I'm going to come down and cheer for them no matter what it costs or whatever.
They're watching this game all over the world, and Vancouver's there.
What meaneth all this madness? To find out, I looked up college professor Martin Robin, an expert on the Vancouver psyche.
Vancouver is ailing now. The body is ailing in Vancouver. The economy is in a mess. People are looking for some kind of big escape, and they're finding it in their hockey team. And people are talking about that's the spirit, the BC spirit. The BC spirit is alive because the BC body is in trouble now. And the Canucks exemplify the BC spirit.
And here they are, guardians of that spirit, back triumphant from 2 straight losses in New York to a hero's welcome at Vancouver Airport. It doesn't look good for them tomorrow night, but Vancouver fans don't insist that its heroes be regular winners, just that they give them a taste of impossible dreams.
When we bring you these stories here at CBC Vancouver, we have award-winning photographers out capturing the images that say so much. Still images can add context and bring a lot more to the understanding of an event or an issue. So here are some of the latest images from what happened this past week. And that's all from our Vancouver for this week. I hope you can join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. Goodbye for now.